Welcome back to my channel, where we dive deep into the darkest corners of human experience. Today's story isn't just another urban legend or creepypasta. What I'm about to share with you comes from psychiatric archives that were sealed for over 60 years, only recently discovered during the demolition of Whitmore State Hospital in Oregon. The documents I've obtained detailed an experimental treatment room that defied every law of psychology and human understanding. Before we begin, I need to warn you. What you're about to hear challenges everything we think we know about memory, identity, and the very fabric of who we are. Some of you might want to click away now, but for those brave enough to continue, prepare yourself for the story of Room 17 and the patients who entered but never truly left. In 1947, Dr. Helena Voss arrived at Whitmore State Hospital with revolutionary ideas about treating severe dissociative disorders. She believed that the key to healing fractured minds lay in complete ego dissolution. Her theory was radical. If a patient could be made to forget their traumatic identity entirely, they could be rebuilt from scratch, free from the psychological wounds that tormented them. Dr. Voss converted a former storage room in the hospital's basement into her experimental treatment space. Room 17, as it came to be known in the files, was painted entirely white. No windows, no clocks, no mirrors. The only furniture was a single chair positioned in the exact center. But it wasn't the room's appearance that made it special. It was what Dr. Voss had done to it. She had installed a complex audio system that played subliminal frequencies designed to disrupt memory formation. The walls contained hidden speakers that emitted sounds just below the threshold of human hearing. Frequencies that interfered with the brain's ability to form coherent thoughts. The lighting system pulsed at specific intervals, synchronized with brainwave patterns associated with deep meditation and memory suppression. The first patient was Margaret Chen, a 23-year-old woman suffering from severe dissociative identity disorder following childhood trauma. Margaret had been unresponsive to traditional treatments for 3 years. Dr. Voss convinced the hospital administration that Room 17 represented her only hope for recovery. Margaret was placed in the room at 9 a.m. on October 5, 1947. The treatment was supposed to last 6 hours. Dr. Voss monitored from an adjacent observation room, watching through a one-way mirror as Margaret sat motionless in the chair. For the first 2 hours, Margaret appeared agitated, speaking to herself, sometimes arguing with voices only she could hear. Then something changed. Margaret fell silent. She stopped moving entirely, staring straight ahead with vacant eyes. Dr. Voss noted in her files that the patient seemed to be entering the desired state of ego dissolution. But when the 6-hour mark arrived and Dr. Voss attempted to open the door, she discovered something impossible. The door wouldn't open. Not because it was locked, but because Margaret wouldn't let it. Every time Dr. Voss tried to turn the handle, Margaret would speak in a flat, emotionless voice. "I don't know who I am anymore. Who am I? I can't remember my name. If I don't know my name, how can I leave?" Dr. Voss initially thought this was a positive sign. The treatment was working perhaps too well. Margaret had achieved complete ego dissolution. But as hours turned to days, Dr. Voss realized she had created something far more sinister than therapeutic breakthrough. Margaret remained in the chair, neither eating nor drinking, yet somehow surviving. Security cameras showed her sitting perfectly, still, occasionally speaking the same phrases. "Who am I? I can't remember my name. Why won't the door open? I think I used to know myself, but that person is gone now." The hospital brought in locksmiths, but every tool they used to force the door failed mysteriously. Drills broke, crowbars bent, even explosives fizzled out harmlessly. It was as if the room itself had become an extension of Margaret's fractured psyche, refusing to release her until she could remember who she was. But that was precisely what the room had been designed to prevent. Dr. Voss documented 43 days of this impossible standoff. Margaret never moved from the chair, never showed signs of physical deterioration, never slept. She existed in a state between life and death, trapped by her own forgotten identity. Other patients in the hospital began reporting nightmares about a white room where a woman sat forever, asking everyone who passed if they knew her name. On the 44th day, Dr. Voss made a desperate decision. She had another patient with dissociative disorder, Robert Thorne, whom she believed might somehow connect with Margaret through their shared condition. Against all protocol, she convinced Robert to enter the observation room and speak to Margaret through the intercom. The moment Robert's voice crackled through the speakers into room 17, something extraordinary happened. Margaret turned, her head, for the first time in weeks, looking directly at the mirror. She spoke, but her voice was different now. Deeper, older, carrying an accent Robert recognized as his own. "Robert," she said, though she had never met him before. Robert Thorne, born February 12, 1924, in Cleveland, Ohio, son of Patricia and William Thorne. "You were 7 when your father left, 12 when your mother remarried your stepfather who hurt you in ways you've tried to forget. You created other selves to survive the pain. Is that right, Robert?" Robert collapsed in the observation room. Everything Margaret had said was true, details from his private sessions that no one else could possibly know. But Margaret wasn't finished. She continued speaking in Robert's voice, revealing intimate details about his childhood trauma, his multiple personalities, his deepest fears and secret shames. Then Margaret's voice changed again. This time, it was Dr. Voss herself, speaking through Margaret's mouth, recounting her own childhood, her failed marriage, her obsession with ego dissolution, theory, personal details that existed nowhere in any file, memories that belonged only to Dr. Voss herself. "The room doesn't just take names," Margaret said, now in Dr. Voss's voice. "It takes everything. Every person who has ever been forgotten, every identity ever lost, every self ever abandoned. They all come here eventually. This is where forgotten people go to exist." Dr. Voss realized with horror that Room 17 hadn't been treating dissociative disorders. It had been collecting them, every fractured personality, every abandoned identity, every forgotten self from patients throughout. The hospital's history had somehow been drawn into the room. Margaret wasn't just Margaret anymore. She was everyone who had ever lost themselves. Speaking through a single vessel, trapped in an endless white purgatory, the hospital administration ordered the room sealed immediately. But sealing it proved as impossible as opening it. Every attempt to wall up the entrance failed. Bricks crumbled, concrete refused to set, steel warped and twisted. Room 17 existed in its own space now. Partially separated from normal reality, Dr. Voss made one final entry in her notes. Before her mysterious disappearance 3 days later, she wrote, "The room has taught me something I never considered. In my research, identity isn't something that can be dissolved and rebuilt. It's something that can be stolen, and once stolen, it finds others like itself." Margaret isn't lost anymore. She's become the keeper of the lost, the guardian of forgotten selves. The door will open when she remembers her name, but she can't remember her name because she has become everyone's name. She is the room now, and the room is her. When Whitmore State Hospital was demolished in 2008, construction workers discovered something that the official reports never mentioned. Room 17 was gone, but in its place was a perfect white cube of empty space, approximately 10 feet by 10 feet, suspended 3 feet off the ground, with no visible support. Inside the cube sat a single chair. And security footage from the demolition shows that sometimes, late at night, a figure appears in that chair. She's still there. According to the few people who have seen the footage, still asking the same question, "Who am I? I can't remember my name." But now, she's not just Margaret Chen, she's everyone who has ever been forgotten. Everyone whose identity was ever lost or stolen or discarded. She speaks in countless voices, telling countless stories of people who no longer exist in the world, but continue to exist in that white room between realities. The construction site where Whitmore Hospital once stood is now a shopping mall. Most people walk past the empty lot behind it without noticing anything unusual. But some visitors report feeling dizzy when they pass a certain spot. hearing whispers asking if they know anyone named Margaret, or Robert, or Helena, or any of the hundreds of other names that drift through the air like forgotten prayers. And sometimes, late at night, employees at the mall security desk receive phone calls from an unknown number. When they answer, they hear a woman's voice, calm and patient, asking a single question: "Excuse me, could you help me remember my name? I think I used to know it, but it's gone now, and the door won't open until I remember who I am." The calls always end the same way. After a moment of silence, the voice adds, "If you ever forget your own name, you'll understand." The room is always waiting for people like us, people who don't know who they are anymore. So before you turn off this video and go about your day, ask yourself this question: how well do you really know your own name? Not just the sounds and letters, but the weight of it, the history of it, the person it represents. Because according to the files from Room 17, the moment you truly forget who you are, even for an instant, the door opens, not to let you out, but to let you in. Sweet dreams, and remember your name. Always remember your name. Thanks for watching another journey into the darkest corners of human experience. If this story disturbed you as much as it did me while researching it, let me know in the comments. And if you've ever had experiences with rooms that felt wrong, places that seemed to exist outside normal reality, I want to hear about them. Until next time, keep questioning everything you think you know about the world around us. There are stranger things hiding in plain sight than you could ever imagine.